For a generation, the face of black excellence in cinema was Sidney Poitier. Then came the towering figures of Denzel Washington and Wesley Snipes. Yet, in the delicate, crucial space between them, a man of unparalleled, almost frightening talent emerged, Howard Rollins. Hollywood, searching for a comfortable label, called him the modern-day Sidney Poitier. But Rollins himself, with the quiet defiance that defined his art, corrected them. I'm not the new Sidney Poitier. I'm the first Howard Rollins. His co-star on the iconic show In the Heat of the Night, Carroll O'Connor, a man who worked with the best, declared he had never met a more gifted actor. The camera adored Rollins, critics hailed his genius, and audiences saw in him the dignity and sharp intellect they craved. But behind that luminous performance lay a secret life, a devastating vulnerability that the spotlight could not reach. His story is a masterclass in acting, and a searing tragedy of addiction, despair, and a profound search for identity. What is the cost of such extraordinary brilliance when the curtain falls? Tonight, we look for the true man behind the legendary roles, the one who struggled until his final, haunting breath. Howard Rollins was born into a world defined by honest labor and quiet aspiration on October 17, 1950, in Baltimore, Maryland. He was the youngest of 4 children. His mother worked as a domestic servant, and his father toiled as a steel worker. This was not a lineage of Hollywood glamour. It was the backbone of the American working class, and his parents' dreams for him were practical, stability and security. As a young man, Howard had a deep love for music, particularly the saxophone. After graduating high school, he enrolled at Townsend State College to study theater. His true ambition, however, was to become a school teacher. The world of performance was not yet his focus, and he held a summer job as a porter at a Sears store located directly across the street from his home when he was just 17. The seismic shift in his life came accidentally, driven by a simple act of friendship. A friend, Frank Knox, was convinced by a girl to attend a casting call at a local Baltimore theater and convinced Howard to go along for moral support. Rollins had never acted a day in his life, nor seriously considered it. But with nothing to lose, he auditioned. The director saw an innate fire, an unteachable genius radiating from him. Howard landed the role in the stage play of Mice and Men. In that single moment on stage, the path to teaching vanished. Howard Rollins was born an actor. His newfound calling soon put him at odds with the values he was raised on. When he landed the role of Slick in PBS's pioneering black soap opera, Our Street, a show focused on an African-American family's search for dignity in West Baltimore, he dropped out of college to pursue acting full-time. His parents, understandably concerned, voiced the hard truth of the era: black people don't become movie stars. You need to get a real job. But Rollins' mind was set. He was determined to forge a career in acting. With only $300 in his pocket, he moved to New York. His natural, undeniable gift was quickly recognized. He was a magnet for producers, finding work without the agonizing struggle most actors face. He secured roles in Broadway productions like the mystery thriller We Interrupt This Program, held the lead in the off-Broadway drama Medal Honor Rag, and shared the stage with Morgan Freeman in The Mighty Gents. He also appeared in G.R. Point, a Vietnam War drama. The quality of his work soon led him to roles reflecting the ongoing struggle for civil rights, including the miniseries King and Roots: The Next Generations. But the role that launched Howard Rollins into the American consciousness, earning him the kind of acclaim few young actors ever experience, was Coalhouse Walker Jr. in the 1981 film Ragtime. The competition for the part was intense, including actors like O.J. Simpson, Lou Gossett Jr., and Richard Pryor. Rollins, feeling the pressure, was certain he had lost the part. When he received the news he had been cast, the relief and joy were overwhelming. He recounted falling to the floor and crying. Ragtime was a milestone, also marking the first film appearances for Samuel L. Jackson and Debbie Allen. The film established him not just as an actor, but as a contender. Howard Rollins received nominations across the board: an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and a new Star of the Year in a Motion Picture nomination. The industry now knew the name. The man who wasn't supposed to be a star had arrived, and he carried a dramatic weight and dignity that seemed to instantly link him to the legacy of Poitiers, proving his parents' initial fears beautifully wrong. Following the monumental success of Ragtime, Howard Rollins dedicated himself to television and film projects that highlighted the evolving civil rights landscape. He took roles in the acclaimed miniseries King and Roots: The Next Generations, cementing his status as a serious dramatic actor. The small screen also welcomed his talent. In 1981, he joined the cast of the soap opera All My Children as a sharp FBI agent, and the following year, he earned a Daytime Emmy nomination for his role as Ed Harding on Another World. In 1983, he delivered a performance of deep historical significance, portraying the slain civil rights leader Medgar Evers in the movie For Us the Living, The Medgar Evers Story. This powerful, emotional role earned him the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actor in a Drama Series, recognizing his ability to embody figures of dignity and principle. However, the year 1984 marked a new cinematic peak: the film A Soldier's Story. This remains a cherished classic, a story about a black military officer and lawyer, Captain Richard Davenport, sent to investigate the murder of a black sergeant in Louisiana during the Jim Crow era and World War II. Rollins's portrayal of Captain Davenport was superb, showcasing his sharp intelligence and commanding presence. The film was a triumph, garnering numerous awards and nominations. It also featured a remarkable cast of rising black talent, including Denzel Washington, David Alan Grier, Robert Townsend, and Patti LaBelle. Rollins himself later revealed an emotional layer to his performance in A Soldier's Story. His father had passed away while he was shooting the film. To cope with the grief, he chose to focus intensely on his work, shooting extra scenes to keep his mind off the loss. This raw dedication infused Captain Davenport's character with a quiet strength that resonated deeply with audiences. After the film, his movie career slowed, and Rollins shifted his focus back to television dramas. Following a short-lived Western series called Wild Side, he secured what would become the defining role of his career: homicide detective Virgil Tibbs on the successful series In the Heat of the Night. The show, a reboot of the 1967 film starring Sidney Poitier, debuted in 1988. Carroll O'Connor, cast as Police Chief Bill Gillespie, had championed Rollins from the start, recognizing his superior resume and talent over competitors like Wesley Snipes. Rollins's Detective Tibbs was the perfect foil to O'Connor's white Southern sheriff, a highly educated, meticulous, and sophisticated black officer. The chemistry between the two anchors drove the show into a major hit in its debut season. This role put Howard Rollins in millions of American living rooms weekly, especially resonating with older viewers who recalled the original film. The image of the dignified, sharp-witted detective was a cultural affirmation, an absolute height of professional respect for a black actor in prime time. It seemed that, the first Howard Rollins, had secured his place in the firmament of Hollywood legends. The foundation was solid, the talent was immense, and the future seemed limitless. But the fragile genius concealed a devastating storm gathering just beneath the surface of the stardom. The brilliance of Howard Rollins on screen masked a spiraling personal crisis that began to violently erupt in his private life. The success of In the Heat of the Night should have guaranteed smooth sailing, but just as the show hit its stride, Rollins was arrested in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was stopped for speeding, clocked at over 100 miles per hour on an interstate. The charges were devastating: possession of crack cocaine, driving under the influence, DUI, and speeding. He was released on a $5,000 bond. The legal troubles immediately impacted his professional life. During the third season of the show, he was forced to miss 5 episodes due to his growing drug problem. A judge ordered him to create an anti-drug video, and he had to take 6 weeks off to enter a mandated drug and alcohol rehab program. The internal struggle was agonizing. Close to Christmas, just 3 days before the holiday, he was reportedly talking about killing himself because he desperately did not want to enter rehab. The rumors of his instability and addiction quickly filtered through the media. Tabloids began running stories claiming his co-star, Carol O'Connor, had fired him from the show. O'Connor, who genuinely cared for Rollins, threatened to sue the tabloids over the false rumors. This brief period of forced recovery seemed to help him, and during his break from the series, he starred in a movie called On the Block. He returned to In the Heat of the Night, and for a time, his popularity continued to soar. But the habits of the past were not truly broken. Years later, he lapsed back into addiction, showing up late to the set or failing to appear at all. The legal consequences mounted. In 1992, he was sentenced to 2 days in jail, fined $1,000, and had his license revoked for driving under the influence of a tranquilizer. The following year, 1993, he was arrested yet again for DUI and reckless driving, which resulted in him spending about a month in jail. Because of his continued legal and personal issues, Howard Rollins was finally and permanently dropped from In the Heat of the Night. He was replaced by Carl Weathers, best known as Apollo Creed from Rocky. Around this turbulent period, rumors began to circulate about his declining health, including reports that he had HIV and AIDS. Rollins publicly denied having AIDS in an interview, admitting only to his addiction to drugs and alcohol. His inner circle, including Carol O'Connor, also publicly denied the AIDS reports, with O'Connor noting that Rollins seemed overweight, not emaciated like typical victims. Rollins was invited back as a guest star for the final season of the show after completing another rehab stint, but new legal issues prevented him from ever truly rejoining the cast. 2 outstanding warrants in Georgia led to him being totally banned from the county where the series was filmed. It became almost impossible for him to find work, leading him to tragically believe he wasn't getting roles because he was black. Yet, the core tragedy was not his professional decline, it was the hidden truth of his personal life. Just as he felt his acting career might be back on track, having secured minor roles in New York Undercover, Drunks, and Harambe, the worst news arrived. 6 weeks after he started working again, his doctor confirmed that he had lymphatic cancer and tested positive for HIV/AIDS. This news, according to his closest friends, was the final breaking point. Howard Rollins went crazy and lost his mind. The man who played the embodiment of masculine dignity on screen began to live a secret double life. He changed his appearance, started wearing sparkling gowns, high-priced wigs, and high heels, dressing as a woman. He told people he was a woman and looked for male lovers. For years, he cruised his Manhattan neighborhood in drag, calling himself Turalura Gopher, sassy, sexy temptress, living a desperate fantasy to escape the torment of his addiction and his terminal diagnosis. The American public saw Detective Virgil Tibbs as a symbol of black dignity and success, a direct heir to the cinematic respect established by Sidney Poitier. The disconnect between the man on screen and the man in Manhattan was vast and devastating. For years, the genius of Howard Rollins was intertwined with a profound secret, shielded by shame and the fear of judgment. His neighbor of 18 years, Howard Wright, who visited him 3 times a day, later described the agonizing loneliness of his final months. Rollins, suffering from his illness and deeply depressed, would sit in the dark, shades drawn, watching reruns of the very show that had made him famous. The only comfort he found was in transforming himself. This was the final, painful act of the first Howard Rollins. When he dressed as a woman, as Turalura Gopher, he could briefly shed the identities that were crushing him: the drug addict, the AIDS patient, the failed star. As Turalura, he was a sassy, sexy temptress. The need to express this hidden self was so strong that friends recounted him joking about wanting to be buried in his golden black beaded cocktail dress, with makeup and false eyelashes. Another neighbor, Art Franco, recalled seeing Rollins high on drugs, dressed in drag, and strutting down the street. When greeted as Howard, he would correct them, "Excuse me, I'm Turalura Gopher." Marcy Hurst described dropping off groceries for him, a man eating Haagen-Dazs, wearing a blonde wig and a dress while watching his old show. The dazzling public image and the crushing private reality had finally been ripped apart by terminal illness and addiction. The world watched the fall of a black icon, but only his closest circle understood the true, terrifying complexity of his inner torment. On December 7, 1996, the troubled journey of Howard Rollins came to a harrowing close. He was found alone and unconscious in his studio apartment. The scene was one of utter devastation. Blood was bubbling from his mouth and nostrils. After being rushed to the hospital, he later died from complications of AIDS-related lymphoma cancer. His agent claimed he died of a bacterial infection from septic shock, but the truth, devastating and layered, was already known to those closest to him. His neighbor and friend, Howard Wright, who had witnessed his suffering for months, recounted a vision of hell upon finding him that afternoon. He described Rollins stretched out on his back, gasping for air, staring blankly. As paramedics lifted him, the gurgling sound grew louder. He was drowning in the blood that poured from his mouth and nose. The floor, Wright said, was covered in blood. It was a painful, agonizing end for a man who had sought refuge in the fantasy of Turalura Gopher, a man who had been ravaged by crack cocaine, alcohol, and finally, HIV/AIDS. Rollins was only 46 years old. The genius who shone brightly in Ragtime and A Soldier's Story was destroyed by inner demons and systemic disease. His final, poignant wish, to be buried as a woman in a golden black beaded cocktail dress, spoke volumes of the identity he never fully embraced in life. Yet, the legacy of the first Howard Rollins endures. It is a cautionary tale of talent extinguished, but also a testament to his undeniable gift. In his brief time, he redefined the capacity of a black dramatic actor, setting the stage for the greats who followed. On October 25, 2006, he was inducted into the Great Blacks in Wax Museum in Baltimore, Maryland. The honor affirmed his lasting contribution, a recognition that finally matched the dignity he brought to every role. Rollins once asked the world to see him as the first Howard Rollins, a unique, uncompromising force. His story now serves as a painful reminder of the battles fought in private, battles that the brightest stars often lose. Did you know about the secret life of Howard Rollins? The tragedy of the crack cocaine addiction and the hidden battle with HIV/AIDS? Share your thoughts below on the legacy he left behind, and if you think Hollywood has learned to embrace the complex truths of its gifted artists.